this video, we're going to cover how to view transaction reports and also how to find individual transactions. In order to view the reports, there are two ways that you can do it. You can either use the quick access button here on the home page and click reports, or you can click transaction reports on the left sidebar. We're going to click on the left sidebar. Anytime you go to the search, it's going to bring you to this main search page, and you have two different ways of finding transactions. You can either do a transaction snapshot, which gives you the opportunity to select by batch, by card payment type, by processor if you have that option, by user account, so who ran the transactions on which account, the source, what the source of the account was, a specific day, week, or month, or you can list a so we're going to start with the settlement batch. And then it gives you a date range. So in this case, we'll just use the beginning of the month to today's date. If you click submit, it's going to show you that we have two transactions that are not settled. In this case, this is a test account, so it's not processing transactions properly. If we go ahead and click the search icon here, it'll show us the other ways that we can view these transactions. So you can either group them by the other options, or if you click view these transactions, it'll take us to the transaction report with all the transactions listed that fit into that category. And then once you're here in the transaction report, you can click on the transaction ID to view the transaction information. So in this case, we're going to go back to reports, and we're going to see what it looks like when we view by a user account. So in this case, we have start date January 1st through December 18th. And in this case, Agapay videos, that's the login username that we have for our account. And if we view these transactions, we'll see all the transactions run by this Agapay gateway account. If we go back to reports, we can also view by day. So it'll separate each transaction out by day. So in this case, it'll give us each day with the zeros totals, and we can see when we ran those transactions. If we click based on the 13th, there's this search icon. We can view these transactions just for that day. If we want to view by transaction source, it's going to group it based on where the transactions came from. If you're using multiple channels, then you can view which transactions came through which channel, whether that's through an API, through QuickBooks Pay if that's what you're using, Stripe, Virtual Terminal, which is what we use on the gateway, or I process mobile payments, meaning it's coming through the mobile application. These are all helpful if you're trying to identify certain information, or if you want to view your transaction reports in the same way, or in a certain way, sorry. But if you're looking for a specific transaction or a range of transactions, an easier way to find them is through the search transactions. In the search transactions, we have a couple different fields that we can search with. And these are dependent upon what you have entered into the transaction. So in this case, if you know the transaction ID, you can search that directly. If you know the last name or the email address the transaction was run with. For the account number, this is going to be the last four of the card or the bank account number. Status, you're able to search based on specific statuses. A transaction type, if you take e-check as well as credit card, you'll have the option to select which one. You can also select based on the action type. If you have multiple processors, you can search by processor. And then any of these other fields that you have. If you have a merchant defined field created, you can also search by the merchant defined field. You can set your minimum amount, your maximum amount, and then you can set your date range. Now, if you just leave it blank like this and just set the date range, it'll show you all of the transactions within that date range. So if we hit submit, it's going to give us all of the transactions that show from December 1st through December 18th based on when we're making this video. Obviously, if this was a real account, like for an e-commerce account, you'd have a lot more transactions. You'd probably have a few declined and other things that came through. But this is a good way if you need to search something. So if you've searched it and you can't find it by the email, it's possible that you have the wrong email, the wrong name, wrong card number. You can go in here and you can kind of audit directly and see, and they're put in time order. So you can view, if you know roughly when the transaction occurred, you can go in and view it that way. And usually this does, I think, about 25 per page. So if you have more than that, it'll break it up into different pages. Another great thing about this is if you need to export certain information, you have the ability to export into either an Excel or a comma separated value sheet. And in this case, format, you just leave it blank, and then we can select download transactions. In this case, it downloads an Excel sheet. We can open up that Excel sheet, and it's going to show us all of those transactions with their transaction ID, reference ID, payment type, and any other information that we'll need, amount, status. This is helpful if you need to do some reports, or if you're going to do some custom reports. You have the ability to download all of the data, and you can see, like, for example, by status or response, whether it's success or declined or failed. You can do those pretty quickly. But in terms of that's the main function of the transaction reports. If you have any other questions about other features on our gateway, feel free to visit our YouTube channel or to visit our website.